What is good, everybody? Hello, hello. I'm jumping on here to answer an Ask Juliana question. Essentially, what this is I open up my inbox to questions that folks want answered in a format like this for free. So, one that I got this past week was around self-fulfillment. And essentially, how do I get there? Like, I feel like I'm doing all the things, I'm stretching myself, I'm reading personal development books, like I'm growing as a human as far as what I know that to be. And I just don't feel like I'm progressing. In fact, I feel like things are getting worse. And I don't know how to get there. Like I've been through seasons, of doing what I think made me happy and it didn't make me happy. And I just feel like I'm somewhat losing it, right? Like in the sense of I just don't feel content. I don't feel fulfilled. And I feel like I should. Like all the external things are checked off that say that I should be fulfilled, but I'm not. What gives, right? Very real, very raw, very vulnerable question. So I totally just want to honor that first. And I want to lift up and highlight that this is something that we all face. We all get challenged by in different times and in different seasons. Okay. But I'm going to address this from three different facets of self. Okay. And not an ego boost, but there's work involved here. Okay. And I know that's probably not your favorite, but it also might not be work that you're sanity, which is continuing to do the same things over and over and getting more of it. I'm going to present a couple of different ways to shoot at this self-fulfillment game. Okay. So short story, I was somebody that was always obsessed with figuring out who am I? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do in the world? Like these questions haunted me as early as 10. Okay. They were just be like swirling in my head. Like I knew that I was here for something, but I wasn't living in it. And there had to be more than the environment that I was being brought up in. Like the humans hadn't figured it out, right? Like there's gotta be more here. So I was always very hungry, sort of like a philosopher in a sense. Like I wanted wisdom. I wanted to seek it out. And I didn't know God at the time, right? Like I didn't know about having a relationship with God. I didn't know that. So that wasn't my answer at the time. So I was looking to the world for answers. I was looking to self-help for answers. I was looking to coaches for answers from, different sports teams that I was on. I was looking to teachers for answers. I was looking to internships and experiences, life experiences, experiential education to just like help me figure this out. Like I don't have a lot of time to figure this out. Like I was just on this hamster wheel trying to answer those questions. And I really felt like there was a ticking clock of some time and it was exhausting. And the more that I kept experiencing things, it felt like the more I kept getting disappointed. And I'm like, this is off, because I'm all about like hard work. I'm all about like launching myself into something scary and taking risks, like cool, like game on. But to keep having this repeat pattern of like going out into the deep and like completing these tasks and these assignments from start to finish, only to come up after all of that being like, cool, like great, like that's done, achievement, check. But like, now what? Like I just start over and we keep doing this. Like this does not feel meaningful or empowering. This is exhausting. And like me and my own strength, I can't keep that up. Right. So essentially, I also got to a place, this was probably in grad school, where I was obsessed also with purpose, which is essentially answering those questions also. But purpose, like, what is my purpose? Like literally, why am I here? Like that one got louder and louder. So I finally had this sit down, and sometimes you hear the still small voice of God. Sometimes you can hear the audible voice of God. This was one of those audibles in the sense of like, I heard it in my spirit. Okay. But I heard it loud and clear. And it was essentially, you're alive, therefore you're on purpose. Now live like it. Right? All this that you're doing to like figure out your purpose, you're just spinning your wheels and you're staying in the same spot and you're like spinning yourself into inaction. You're actually not being God's hands and feet in the world. You're not being busy about anything. You're being busy about future tripping and worrying and just like sitting in a rocking chair going back and forth and getting nowhere, right? You're alive, therefore you're on purpose, right? God is the one that put the very breath in our body, right? So you're here on purpose for such a time as this. Your purpose is to live on purpose. Like your purpose is to live like you were made by God. You were formed, shaped, and anointed for a purpose. And your purpose is to live like it. For whatever opportunities he leads you and guides you into, like that's it. So that was revolutionary for me. Completely changed my life and completely changed my inner life and how I showed up. So for whoever that serves, I hope that story is helpful. But it also helped me with this self journey because I do believe in Godfidence, not necessarily self-confidence. And I also believe in keeping my focus on the right things. When the focus is on me, the world gets smaller. But when my focus is on God, the world expands, right? And so I think that that's an important shift. So this isn't about being like full of self. The more we empty ourself, the more we get out of our own way, the more we surrender, the more of ourself we can actually reveal in the world. So it seems a bit counterintuitive, okay? So the three things that I'm going to share today. Number one, self-fulfillment. I'm going to share a different perspective about what that could look like for you. So for me personally, it's again, knowing that I'm alive, therefore I'm on purpose. My purpose is to live like it. So how do I do that? It's living that out. So I do that by being in constant contact with my creator, right? Because how else am I going to get wisdom? How else am I going to get divine downloads, good orderly direction, discernment, guidance, direction on my steps? Where's that going to come from? Me and my best idea? Seen that movie before, right? Outside counsel that don't even know me? Really? They just know the projected version of me? That ain't gonna work. Right? Like, where's it gonna come from? Like, let's be real. I would like it to come from the one who created me and knows exactly why he created me, right? So at any rate, I then need to have relationship with God so I know what that feels like. I know how God is talking to me. I know what the word and the principles of the word are. I know how to order my life in agreement with that. That's part of it. But then I also am in tune or sensitive to divine promptings, Holy Spirit promptings, right? This divine guidance. You might have called it an intuitive hit, right? But you get this idea, you get this strategy, you get this prompting to do something. Where do you think that came from, right? So the key here is to get the prompting, all right, and then take the action, whatever that is, but follow through on it, okay, and see it through to completion. That's literally releasing into the earth what you got from heaven, on earth as it is in heaven, okay? So this could be a book, right? And how many of you know writing books isn't just like, oh, cute, I got an idea, I put it on an index card, and I'm like a best-selling author. Like, that's not what happens, right? Sometimes it takes years. So my very first book took years of my life to even get to that point to write it, right? To even get to the place where I could write that, right? But there's other times too, like I had an idea for a book that I'm just releasing now, okay? So that was 4 years in the making, but I held that idea. And I had notes that were outlining all of the chapters and all the things that I was being prompted to share. And then when the time was right and the Lord breathed on it, I started to feel the momentum. I started feeling the inspiration, and I sat down and I showed up for it. It was messy every day, writer's block, all the things, right? But I just kept sitting down, and I got to the points where it flowed together. You know, there were some days nothing happened. There was other days where it's like I didn't move for 14 hours. So it just depends, okay? But that's an example of I got this idea, and it could be a nonprofit. I had this idea for a nonprofit, and I'm going to go launch it into the world, right? I'm going to start taking steps towards that versus staying in the space of, I don't know, I don't have the qualifications. Is this really the prompting? Like, not second guessing the prompting, but getting really good at receiving the promptings, taking action when you get that, obeying it, even if it's writing down the idea, right? And then seeing it all the way through, because that is a manifestation of what you got from heaven, okay? And as you do that, that's so fulfilling because you know that that was given to you, right? For you to express into the world. And fulfillment comes in following those promptings and seeing them through, okay? And building momentum with that. So think about that. If you were to rate your sense of fulfillment on that versus external feedback, how many likes did I get? What was the response that I got from this human? Like, how did people rate that? Or what were the reviews saying about that? Instead of all of that, What if you did what you knew you were destined to do and saw it all the way through? That was your purpose, right? Be busy about it. So like another example of this, I was working with a company on a project. Okay. And the main intent was to have a series of conversations to get really important content out into the world and provide a way where people can hear it and receive it and be influenced by it and moved by it. Okay. Now, through different people getting involved, too many cooks in the kitchen, right? The person with the original intent not being 100 on what the intent, what the purpose is, when the product came out, when one conversation was had and it was being turned into a video, when this person saw the video, suddenly it was like, this can't be released. I don't want it out in the world. Not okay, right? Because it wasn't perfect, because the idea in this person's mind was different than what the final product looked like. And the original intent for it was forgotten. So it was no longer about getting this out to serve people. It was about, it needs to look this way in order to get it out. With me? So I even had this experience in, I think it must have been film school. It's either film school, probably, but it was essentially this thought: done is better than perfect. Meaning, especially for a creative, there's so many ideas. There's so many different ways that things could be done. There's so many different counselors and people that can tell you what to do and how to do it, and this is the right way, all of that, right? But the most important thing is following the prompting that you got, communicating that to the other people that are involved, and releasing it and trusting that that is enough, because there's so much that doesn't actually get into the world that could change people's lives, and it just doesn't get out because of ego, because of us getting in the way and edging God out. Great idea, but it's not good enough, so I'm just gonna release it. And God wants us to trust in all things, right? But not to even despise the small beginnings. Like, you're gonna suck. Really, like whenever you try something new, it's not going to be perfect, and you're not aiming for perfect, you're aiming for impact, right? So, and to follow through on that prompting. So hopefully that's helpful on self-fulfillment. But there is something radically fulfilling doing what you know you were supposed to do in the moment you were supposed to do it, being in the right time. That's fulfilling. Okay. And not missing your moments. That's fulfilling. All right. Number 2 is self-happiness. Okay. So this one sounds, depending on who you've listened to, it could sound selfish. It could sound self-centered, whatever. Right. But self-happiness is actually being able to have and enjoy your life. Okay. So that's a promise that we're given. We're entitled, in a sense, to have and enjoy our life in abundance to the full until it overflows. We have access to that. Now, how do we get there? Again, this is an experiential thing. So, for example, nobody can receive for you. Nobody can cultivate gratitude, right? Nobody can be grateful for you. Nobody can tell you what to focus on. Nobody can express emotions for you. Nobody can really understand what is going on in your heart but your creator, right? Who knows you intimately. So the key is, if you're not doing anything in your life to actually be a receiver, keep a record of what you're grateful for. How can you actually focus on the things that make you happy when you're just constantly going through the motions and just throwing more things in your schedule, moving from thing to thing to thing? Like, what is actually landing? What is actually landing? The cute quote about stop and smell the roses, right? There's some truth to it, though. If you are just speeding through life, what are you missing? What are you missing? So, for example, I was living in New York in a different season, and there's so much to see in New York, but I had this thought as I was walking down, all of the buildings, and you're just kind of in like a zone. Well, everybody's in the zone. They got like their ear pods in, they're like walking miles a minute, But I thought, man, like so many people are just looking straight ahead or down, right? And they're missing everything that you can see when you just look up in the city. There's so much that you can see if you just look up. But how often do we not do that? We just stay like, boom, like tunnel vision, and it's usually vision on the wrong things, right? And you get what you focus on, whether you want it or not. Okay, so that's not always the best strategy here. So what I'm holding up is that there's got to be ways where you can actually reflect on what is making you happy, or how you know what happiness even feels like in your being, and actually what you're grateful for. Because the more you focus on things to be grateful for, again, the more you'll find them. But you'll also train yourself to look for that everywhere. Okay, but we also, as much as we're trained to be doers, we also have to be good beers and receivers. Okay, so for example, in your relationship with God, how are you going to receive anything from God if you're just praying, if you're just, reading the word and checking out? Like, are you ever just sitting and receiving and seeing what God wants to actually say to you personally? You got to be still. Be still and know that I am God. A lot of us aren't still enough to actually receive anything, right? A lot of us aren't even still enough to feel what we're feeling and take ownership of that. Right? A lot of us could have a happy moment, but we're already on to another one, so we can't fully be in the moment now, right? So think about that. What are you doing to actually help yourself reflect on what is going on in your life? Yes, you have things in your life. Are you enjoying them? That's a question, right? And God gave you this life. He gave you this body. He gave you these experiences. He's given you these people. He's given you these resources. Like, are you enjoying any of it? Are you just focusing on what you got to do, or how people are responding to you, and how you can manipulate and control things around you, right? It's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. But you've got to be still, and you've actually got to train yourself to receive, so that you can become more aware of, ooh, this really makes me happy. I need to add more of this in my life, right? Or this not so much. I need to set some boundaries around that, right? What energizes you? What drains you? You can tell what that feels like in your body. If something is draining you, you feel like constricted and like cut off, right? And when something is life-giving, it feels like expansive and free, like it's so life-giving, right? So start thinking about that and start spending and creating windows of your time, especially if you're a doer, more time to be still. Stop running and be still. And the less activity you have going on, the better. Okay. And then lastly, number three is, what was number 3? Okay, I said self-fulfillment, self-happiness. This one is self-confidence. Okay. So self-confidence is interesting, right? Like, I would love if we just, could have that be activated. Like, ta-da, I'm confident, yay. But that's not how it works at all. It's actually a skill. It's not just something that you're born with, unfortunately. It's something that you cultivate. It's something that you practice. It's something that you train yourself to do. Like, we don't just arrive at self-confidence. And in fact, the more you keep going to new levels, the more you feel fear, the more you feel unqualified, the more you feel awkward, right? The more you keep stretching and growing, it's, do I have what it takes? Can I do that? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't feel right. So the self-confidence training is constant. And the best way that I can break down what that is self-talk. Okay. So you talk to yourself already. It might be like the worst self-talk. Like, a great self-check for your self-talk is, if you were to project onto a movie screen everything that you were saying to yourself for all the world to see, what kind of movie would that be? Right? Would you like to go to that movie? Would you want to watch that movie? If you don't want that stuff to be public, right, then you probably shouldn't be talking to yourself like that either. Okay, but you got to be ruthless with this. It doesn't just happen. The word of God actually says, take every thought captive that's exalting itself above the truth. That's not like, oh, cool, like this thought is beating me up. That's no, literally, I'm going to take this down. I'm going to uproot it from my mind, and I'm going to replace it with truth. So I'm going to talk back to the lie. I'm not going to let the lie talk me down to a lower place. I'm going to talk myself up to who I actually am, right? And what I am becoming, so that I can actually draw that potential out of myself, so I can actually step into it. Okay. We're here to run with endurance the race that is set before us. Okay. But we can't run if we're not clear and if we're not talking ourselves into it. Okay. So a great example is an actor, right? So an actor going to an audition, freaking out, right? Like, you see all the people that are going to be auditioning for the role as well. You start making up stories in your mind about like why this person's more qualified than you, or you start looking at, the people that are going to be judging or evaluating you and just sizing them up also. Like, you got to stop that. You got to nip it in the bud, go to the bathroom if you need to, make sure nobody else is in there. Lock yourself in there and just look in the mirror and start talking to yourself. Start pouring courage into yourself. Start pouring confidence into yourself. I've been in this many movies. Like, I've trained for this. I'm prepared for this. Like, I'm the girl for this job, right? Like, I am amazing at being able to draw forth the character and personality of this character. Like, I am the one that can actualize this person in this film, right? And then you can walk out of that bathroom in confidence and land the job, right? But that is something that takes that little detour of self-confidence, self-talk work. Okay, self-confidence isn't just like one of those things that's like, poof, I have it, right? It's something that you work on every day. And the thing is that actually spreads, just like fear spreads, and it's a deadly disease, right? Confidence spreads also. So all the work that you're doing on your own confidence, you actually spread that and pour that into the people around you. Okay, you inspire them to be more confident. You inspire them to show up fully. You inspire them to step into the fullness of who they are. But if you refuse to do that, you continue to live in this state of unworthiness, this place of I'm not enough, nothing I do is ever enough, which is all a lie. And you can stay in that box if you don't check yourself, right, before you wreck yourself. So that work is vital. A lot of people think it's cute, but it's actually super serious. And it's essential in you being able to do that, because nobody can get into your mind for you. Nobody can think for you. Nobody can speak for you. Nobody can feel for you. Nobody can process for you, right? People can help you, absolutely, but nobody can do that work for you. You can have the best coach, you can have the best mentor, but ultimately at the end of the day, you are the voice that you are listening to. So you got to make sure that you are listening to the voice that's going to bring about and really call forth the potential, the gold that God put in you into this earth, right? And that requires all of you. That's not something that you can be casual about. That literally requires courage. It requires bravery. It requires strength. The joy of the Lord is our strength. So it requires joy, right? And that's something that we can activate, but it's supernatural. So I want to keep that in mind here. All of the self-work, we can't manifest and create who we are in the world apart from God. The word actually says that. Apart from God, I am nothing. Apart from God, I can do no good thing. Right? So if you know that, then you can start with God and you can really work in getting the potential out. So you can exchange your cares, cast your cares on the Lord because he cares for you. You can give your worries, you can give your fears, you can give your weaknesses. God shows up strong in your weakness. So you might not think that you got it, but man, you're going to activate your faith. You're going to show up and you're going to step into it, trusting that God is going to come through, that you are going to be fueled by God from within, by the power of the Holy Spirit. You're just going to flow in it. Right? But that's something that you invite God into. You just don't think that it's just going to happen that way. Right? So it's something that you get really good at. So self-fulfillment, self-happiness, and self-talk are all things that contribute to overall fulfillment and things that you actually have in your own power to do. They're all things that you can cultivate, and they're all things that don't require external feedback. Right? You cultivate your own sense of happiness. Nobody can make you happy. That's a lie. Because nobody can feel for you. Nobody can feel for you. A lot of times we think if that person changed, if that person did that, if this changed, then I'd be happy. You got to be happy first, and that other stuff will change. Okay? And then with the self-talk, that's where confidence comes from. It is great when you have people that compliment you, when you have people that pour courage into you, right? But you can't be fueled by that. You can't be entitled to that. You can't expect that. Because what are you going to do if that's removed from your life? You've got to be good at doing that and giving that to yourself. That's a gift. Okay? It's something that you can get really good at. And then also with fulfillment, think about that. Am I living on purpose? And how can I do that? Right? In my experience and how I've seen with others, it's by following those inner promptings all the way through and knowing that I was in the right place at the right time, that I played my part. Right? I co-created with God and brought forth what he gave me to bring forth. I was faithful, right? And I stayed in integrity and I was consistent, and I keep doing that. And every day there's something new. There's new mercies every day for what it is that I have to do today, that I get to do today, that I'm blessed to do today. God woke me up to do something today. What is it? I'm going to go ask him. And when he tells me, I'm going to move, right? I'm going to follow through. And then when I feel weak, I'm going to ask for help. Tracking? So hopefully this is helpful. I know that this is a longer way to answer that question, but I just feel like it was such a deeper question that I wanted to get at. Perhaps you're presenting to the world somebody who isn't authentically you. Perhaps you are doing things that you think are good, but it's not actually what you're inspired to do. Perhaps you have many good things going on, but none of them are God things. And unless the Lord builds the house, it will not stand, right? So that could contribute to exhaustion and a sense of wasted energy or frustration and overwhelm. So just explore. Take some time. If you didn't take notes, maybe go back through and write down some of the things that you want to work on, and just start exploring this, start practicing this, and start to see what happens with your fulfillment level. Scale 1 to 10, 10 being like uber fulfilled and 1 being not so much. Where are you after you start doing this work? I bet if you become radically responsible for your own work and you start practicing these things for real, and consistently, you will see a change. Okay. And if you want help on this, I am here for it. You can visit julianapage.com. I actually have a self-mastery course. So this goes into many aspects of self and self-mastery in general, and it's not something that you often hear talked about. So it's something that I definitely believe is needed. And it's a journey that you go on. It's very personal. So there's a course that's designed to help guide you through that. I also am a coach, so we can work together on your own development and on your own goals and help close that gap together so you don't have to do that alone. There's also a lot of other books and resources, the podcasts, the social medias, all the things. So go check out julianapage.com. If you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that is the best way to get a notification when a new video is available so that you can binge watch videos. It's also the best way to stay connected with new updates as well. So make sure that you subscribe. If this message resonated with you, like it, comment, let a girl know. It's always fun to know who's actually absorbing the content and benefiting from it. If you have a question, I will drop my email below if you want me to answer a question live like this. And then also, if this made you think of somebody that you know, it's usually always for you first, but you are free to also copy the link and share it with a friend, because sharing truly is caring. All right, guys, until next time, stay blessed.